Hello, hello. Welcome. Happy Friday. Friday, August 12th. We're almost halfway through the month again. How did that happen? Summer's just flying by. But here we are. Happy. And there are 4 of us on camera today. So exciting. David here with us and special guest AJ in the background. I can see AJ's there with us.
Down there.
Yeah.
I was going to say Macro's right over here. He's taking a nap.
Yeah, and Sally's over here laying in the floor too, so she'll probably make a special appearance as well at some point.
Cats and dogs laying together.
There you go.
Yep. Mass pandemonium or hysteria or something like that. I can't remember the exact line, but those who know. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We've got some fun in store for you today. As always, we always have fun here on the IT Hour. That's what makes Fridays so special. Thanks everyone for joining us. Looks like we've already got a great conversation going on in the chat about beer and Glenlivet and Macallan, and we're starting great. I mean, I've got Wild Rose or something in the other room. I know it's not as fancy as Glenlivet and Macallan, but I've got a whole, I should have brought it in here so I could show you my Thor's Molnar giant
it did show
hammer.
Up.
It's in the other room. I just don't have it with me. Maybe while you two are talking, I might have to go get it and show it during the news session so you can see how massive this is. I'm not breaking any FCC rules if I'm just showing it on camera and not drinking it, right? So yeah, maybe we'll do that. See, she is making an appearance.
And there's Sally,
there
right on
you go.
cue.
Right on cue. All right, so we will jump right in. I'm Becky Scott, Senior Manager of Community Efforts at JumpCloud. We've got Alexa Emerson with us and Tom Bridge and special guest David Worthington. He has been on before, but it's been a while. So welcome back, David. Glad to have you here. And so we've got lots of comments going. Let's see. What do we have here? Rob's going crazy today. Talking about a little bit of everything. I can't keep up with you, Rob. Let's see. Purchasing. Never buy a workstation that can't hide a bottle of Glenlivet inside. Oh, yeah.
I have a bottle of single malt Glenlivet upstairs from when I worked with Microsoft. And now it's sort of a break glass in case of emergency if I have to use Active Directory again.
There you go. So last month, I think it was last month, we had our Raleigh meetup at Whiskey Kitchen in downtown Raleigh, and they've got a whole wall of all kinds of great whiskeys, and it goes from the lower shelf up to the really nice stuff on the top shelf, and they've got a bunch of different ones just all lined up. So you're missing out if you don't come to some of these meetups because, especially Raleigh, because I'm gonna choose the fun places if I'm gonna go, and I'm sure Tom will do the same when we get to do some of those in person in DC. So Alexa's going to tell us more about that in a few minutes. I'm going to start by telling you all about community, but first the agenda. We're going to talk about community and then meetups. And Tom, I don't know if you have any product news, but we'll do that if there are any. And then David and Tom and I might jump in a little bit. We're going to talk about IT Sprawl and then our always fun and entertaining IT news. That's what is in store today. So speaking of David, our super duper guest today, he wrote about Active Directory integration and documentation. So we'll post that link. Go take a look at that. It's an interesting topic. If you are part of an MSP or you have been before, if you've been a part of any peer groups, Chris from our team is wondering about that and would love your comments. He started a discussion about that. So go chime in there. And if you're passionate about policy or dying, I just know you are dying to tell us what would be better, what we could do better about ours, here's your chance because Jorana has started a thread just for that. And again, we'll post a link so you can jump in and tell us what you are thinking or what we could be doing a little bit better, just a little bit better.
She's wicked smart. Talk to her.
Absolutely. She's open for input, and that's what I love. She's wanting to hear more. So please go give her your opinion, as always. We know you all are not opinionated in the least. So, do what you got to do. Alexa, please tell us what's going on in Meetup's world.
All right. Yes. So I know I've been kind of teasing an update for a while now, and it's finally here, so we get to talk about it. But first, kind of another exciting update in the world of meetups is we started a new group this week for our Singapore IT admins. So if you're joining us from Singapore, make sure you check it out. We already have almost 30 members, which is amazing. And we already have, it's not officially scheduled on the platform, but we are going to have our first meetup on September 8th in Singapore. So make sure that you
Nice.
are a part of that so that, yeah, you don't miss out. We have a cohort of Jump Cloudians headed to Singapore next month, and they'll be there. So it's going to be a really awesome time. And Jurgen from Jump Cloud is kind of heading up the efforts there. So it's going to be great. So I
He
wanted
was
to
a
make sure.
customer. He's super smart and knows the
yeah.
product inside and out.
Yes, it'll be great. So yeah, make sure you're a part of that so you don't miss the updates there. And then kind of the big update is we have been behind the scenes rebranding the Meetup program, and it's finally live. So if you haven't checked out the network in a while, make sure you go check it out because it is all updated. It's got a new look and it looks amazing, if I do say so myself. So a couple things have stayed the same, a couple things are different. So I wanted to kind of talk through all of that. So starting with what is the same. So we are still an agnostic meetup network, meaning, even though we're sponsored by Jump Cloud, we are not here to talk about Jump Cloud exclusively. We are here to talk about all things tech. That has not changed. We are still open to all IT professionals, and we still aim to just bring fellow techies together in order to, grow your network, share insights, learn from each other, foster career growth, and as always, have fun. As Becky mentioned, we host our meetups at super fun locations. There's always drinks involved. Oh, Becky, was that you?
Yes, that's me.
Awesome. Yes. So that is the new network, and it looks amazing. And yeah, along those lines, our mission remains, as you can see on screen, building community through IT connections. So with that said, what is different? Most glaringly is our visual branding. As you can see on screen, we have a new look from our network header to our profile icon to all of the individual group headers. They're all different. And our goal in doing this was to kind of neutralize the look a little bit in order to, again, emphasize that we are open to all IT professionals, kind of broaden our reach a little bit. So hopefully you get that from this visual. And we've also added a new element to the program called Let's Talk Tech. So, this group is about meeting up to talk all things tech after all. So you'll start to notice that all of the events moving forward begin with Let's Talk, followed by the discussion topic. So let's talk security, let's talk automation. This way you'll know kind of exactly what the main discussion is. And we're hoping that will not only help to streamline our conversations, but it'll also add cohesion to the series as a whole. So we hope that you're as excited as we are about these updates and that you'll continue to engage with this program. As always, feel free to reach out with your feedback, thoughts, concerns, and let us know if you're interested in activating a meetup in your area. And yeah, we hope to see you at an event soon.
I mean, we can't promise Whiskey Kitchen everywhere, but if you have a cool venue that you want us to, set up, we'll see what we can do.
Yeah.
I mean, just ask Pam. They've done some cool things in Chicago for sure.
Yep.
So we are open to that.
Yeah. And not really speaking of Chicago, but speaking of DC with Tom on here, we have DattoCon coming up in about a month. So we are going to schedule our first in-person DC meetup around DattoCon. So if you're in the DC area, stay tuned for those updates.
Or if you're just coming to DattoCon, come out and see us.
Yeah,
we'll have
oh my God.
presence. I was gonna say I'm filming a video later today for social media hype on our new MSP program.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're coming out to DattoCon, please let me know. DC's my hometown, so yes, I can promise single malt when we go out. So I was gonna say whether or not I get to expense all of it, we'll see. But there's a lot of great places for us to go in DC and a lot of great people here. So if you're coming to DattoCon, if you're a guest to DC, please be welcome in my hometown. I'm happy to talk with you.
That's awesome. I think I'm gonna, if you're gonna have a DC meetup during DattoCon, I will try to drive up for that.
Wow.
Come
really
on
will.
up.
Yes, I will see
Amazing.
what I can do.
I'm-
I'm
before
laughing
you-
because of
I
Rob's
know.
comment. Yes, read it,
I'm
please.
sorry, Rob. Apparently I gave him a heart attack because he was so invested in listening. Thank you for that. He was so invested in the Meetup update that he didn't notice his boss's dog next to him. Oh gosh, I'm sorry, but thank you for listening.
Wow, that's some dedication right there.
Rob,
To
I owe
listen.
you a craft beer, is what I'll promise you.
Apparently, no PBLs though,
Yeah.
which is not a craft beer. We know that. Trust us. So, Tom, did you have any product release updates
I
today?
don't have anything for you today. There were several releases of new policies on August 9th, which was just on Monday. So check the the release notes. There are a whole bunch of new Mac specific and iOS specific policies that have been released over the last couple of weeks. We'll have a community post and a blog post later today, I hope. Some of it also depends on me being able to put fingers to keyboard to finish up those things. But there's a lot of things in flight right now. I'll be more than happy to talk on my next appearance about some really exciting things that are coming down the pike over the next couple of weeks, including the early access of remote support. Very exciting.
I know early September we've got plans to do an IT hour on some things that are coming up too.
Good stuff afoot, friends. Good stuff
yes.
afoot.
Oh, there it is again. You're gonna set Rob off again.
Afoot.
Yeah, afoot. Things are afoot.
It's okay.
Yeah, they're gonna ask for socks again. You know that, right? Ask for more
I
socks.
think Rob has already asked for it in the comments.
Yes. David did that though. He said he was a winner. He's like, "Oh, do I get a foot?" So, for those of you who don't know, it's a joke that we're not even sure how it started. Somebody said a prize is a foot, as in on its way or coming up, and somebody said we're getting a foot. There, you have feet in your inventory, and so then we
It's
decided
an ongoing IT hour joke.
It's been ongoing, and then we actually discovered that we actually had branded socks, and so we sent the winner that week, which happened to be Steven. We sent him socks, and it just from then on the joke was unstoppable. So we
I like
hate
a
to
good
leave.
sock. They're
Yes.
comfortable.
Yes. I have a friend who just went to a conference and sent me a picture of all the socks they had gone around all the vendors to see how many socks they could collect. I think they had a half dozen at least. So socks are still a thing at the conferences so far. They're still a big deal. So I like socks. All right. Moving on to our main topic. IT sprawl. We are going to talk about what is IT sprawl. So, David and Tom, what is IT sprawl and why are we talking about it today?
David, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, certainly. So we had a comment where, very enlightened one, where sometimes you have to work with stuff and you didn't get to make that choice. And that sort of encapsulates it. Everyone's always looking for that one thing that solves their problem or every problem. So sprawl comes naturally. People are trying to solve their problems. Over time, that accumulates. And there's just hidden cost and risk, more attack surface area and such as time goes on. Give you a quick example. When I took over my last IT department, there were things that we knew nothing about. Folks in marketing just had to set up their own Dropbox just to share files because there was really no other way. And it was reasonable of them to want to have the tool to do their job. You all encountered things like that?
Yeah. Oh, I was going to say, when I was working in concert IT, we would frequently go backstage, check out the network, and it would be like nothing we'd ever seen before because it was not created with any kind of intentionality. And, it worked over time. And so nothing was ever done to kind of neaten up the environment. Nothing was ever kind of done to, put some order in place. Or my favorite place that we worked with, their wireless network was 5 separate WRT54G Linksys routers. If you've ever seen the picture of the blue and black Linksys router, you know exactly what I mean. That was their Wi-Fi network. Was there a password on it? Absolutely not. Was any of it secured? Completely no. And so you start to think about the way in which systems get created. In a lot of cases, that sprawl happens over time. And so it was a place where I needed something to fix it now, instead of spending a little bit of time investing in a future solution that was a little bit longer, or a little bit more detailed, or a little bit more integrated into your environment. And so that kind of sprawling message of, we haven't built this intentionally. We have kind of hodgepodged it to put together. And, figuring out how you go through that process is a huge challenge, right, David? I mean, it's starting to move from it needs to work now to, I really want to take the time to put this together to make it a cohesive system, is a big part of figuring out how to grow up as a business.
And absolutely, the answer isn't necessarily just saying no to people either, because that can trigger shadow IT, where folks will think, well, I need to do this, whether IT is with me or not. And it happens. So, yes, how do you unwind that ball of yarn? That's really sitting back, taking an assessment of what you need. Does that meet the requirements of your folks? Just being realistic with that. And especially these days when IT teams and budgets might be becoming leaner. And we have been very focused on IT unification, where you can take the solutions that solve your problems, but make sure things are managed in terms of identity and access management and security and device management, all those things that protect your resources. There can be some consolidation that happens. For instance, if you have 3 different conference platforms, maybe you don't need to license them all. And some of that time and money can go to other priorities, which may not necessarily be software. And before I take a breath and let someone speak, there's another point here. It's there's been the whole idea of, we mentioned best of breed asks that come from departments. That is a hidden cause of sprawl. But in IT, sometimes there's been the desire to just get what's best, to look at that magical quadrant and just say, oh, well, that looks terrific, and maybe buy more than you need. So that's another contributor.
For sure. And, I think a little about, the way in which we choose products. Is interesting. We oftentimes don't spend a little bit of time thinking about how it fits into our ecosystem. That maybe just because we've only got 5 minutes to come up with a solution, or even a day or 2 or 3 days, you don't have the longer cycle necessary to determine, like, how does this fit in my environment? Am I doing a security review? Am I, tying this into our central platforms, right? So talk to me a little bit about how you went through the process of, like, solving this. What kind of recommendations do you have for folks on how to address the IT sprawl issue?
Okay, well, some of the problems my department had were more fundamental. It wasn't just our stuff. So we had a lot of projects going on, and many were software deployments. But the needs of the organization and the needs of the department, the corrective actions that need to be taken, were more foundational. We needed forms. We needed procedures. We needed to track and be accountable about the quality of our own work. And we cut those projects down. So that's how things started. We had sort of a hard reset to just focus on doing the fundamentals well. And then we moved out from there. And to be honest with you, we still had the issue of disparate identities and systems, and we hadn't by the time I left the organization, we hadn't gotten to the point where there was IT unification. But had we done that, a lot of time and cost and hours could have been allocated elsewhere to other priorities. We were a manufacturing business. What could we do to make manufacturing better? Well, let's focus on that ERP system rather than systems maintenance.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I think that there's another interesting conversation as we talk a little bit about shadow IT in the chat here, about combating that kind of shadow IT. Because, for those who are unfamiliar with the term, shadow IT is what happens when, somebody outside of the IT organization just is like, you know what, I'm going to start using Dropbox today. Or I'm going to, sign up for SurveyMonkey, and I'm going to, just sign it up for a free account and it's no big deal.
I wonder which organization is guilty of that the most.
I have some theories.
I have some theories as well. I'm not saying that marketing groups are sometimes guilty of that, but I have heard.
I'm not saying that. I think that, in a lot of organizations, it's never done with like intent, right? Like, I don't think that this is something where it's just like, I don't want to bother IT. It's more like, I need to get this job done now, and I don't have a tool I need. So I'm going to acquire that tool and deal with it later. We would frequently find whole departments who had just put this on somebody's credit card and expensed it.
Especially if there's a purchasing process around things that makes it more of a hassle to do it and they're in a hurry. So sometimes you do these processes to help manage costs and everything and security and all these things. But that actually, when people are in a hurry, it kind of gets in the way of things, right? So that actually spawns more shadow IT because you're trying to protect the company. Like, you want to get bulk licenses and things like that, right? An enterprise license versus a one-off and blah, blah, blah. But then shadow IT results sometimes. Whether
and that's, I think that really it's just a matter of going from shadow IT to formal IT. And in a lot of cases, a lot of organizations, what they start doing is they just start saying no. And when an IT organization says no and not no, but, or maybe instead of saying no, they say yes, and you get to do something else.
We're big on the yes and.
We're big on the yes and. Well, I mean, that's it, right? Like, I feel like IT needs to say yes and more than it says no. And it's yes and please bring me your budget. Or yes, and we're going to tie it into these central systems. Or yes, and we actually do need to go through the security review because it's a really key area of the company. But starting to say yes more is how you get buy-in from your collaborators in other departments.
Yes, and we discussed updates to ADI, Active Directory Integration documentation, earlier in this segment. We didn't just get our ducks in a row. We taught them the quack, by the way. Check it out. There's a logical sequence. So it's really well done. And we've also addressed things that left people scratching their heads previously. So that helps get people into trying our platform. Shameless plug. But there's a point here. So just because you may have a tool, yes, you have that tool. Yes, you may have Active Directory. The and part is you do not need to turn that off until that last active object isn't bound to the directory. So you can try other things and solve more modern problems and begin IT unification for identities and applications, even if you have that infrastructure in place. So that is a big yes and.
Yeah, that's a superb way to think about things when you want to do the yes and we're going to do these other things that you don't have to do person in another department, but just me that I need to do. So, I think that that's, something that, organizations need to figure out on their own is like, where are their lines, right? Like, where are the dotted lines? What do you care about? What don't you care about? Because, everybody has to figure out, everybody has to figure out like where their own lines are. So, I think that is, I think that that's exactly how to handle it. So, from those perspectives.
Yep, and we did touch on leaner IT. Everyone's lines are different, and you may be part of an SME where you don't have the resources to do everything you do. But if you prioritize things, IT unification is something that can help you sort of trim all of those responsibilities you have down to be able to focus more. So it's not just solving the issues with your stack. It can make you more productive and probably less burnout.
Yeah, avoiding burnout is a really important part of this, right? Like you're doing some of this work for your own sanity. And figuring out how you get from where you are to where you need to be in terms of process is all about a better quality of IT life for all the practitioners out there. Which is to say, it's not that I want to say no; it's that I have to go through this process because the process is what protects all of us together. And doing those kind of processes really is all about going through that, going through those motions. And you can just say, hey, look, we really want to do this, but we got to take the right steps in order to make this happen.
Absolutely. And there's just a comment by our friend Jeff about outdated tools stinging companies. I got to tell you, there was once a project where because we didn't have endless resources in my organization, we assessed different desktop PCs. And rather than replace everything at once, which would be ideal, maybe there were machines where we could throw in some memory and an SSD, and we extend the lifespan, get that machine onto Windows 11, get off Windows 7. That's a win. Check that box. But in doing so, in one department, quality control, we found out that there was a homebrew database application just running off of a single desktop machine with critical information that was subject to compliance and not backed up. That involved updating that involved having gone to eBay and get various versions. We had to get another old version first to be able to upgrade to the current supported version. So those old tools sting. Shadow IT stings. It's all important stuff for many reasons. Just mention that compliance can come bite you too.
Well, and that kind of takes us to another fun little section, which is compliance, right? Like, how do you see the compliance regimes out there that are present today in IT, whether they're formal or informal? What do you think about how we talk about compliance?
You're asking me?
Yeah.
Oh boy, is that a loaded question?
I know. This is the IT hour, friend. We don't ask unloaded questions here.
I saw ISO audits that in previous years had no teeth, and you just say, yeah, we'll fix that. See you in a few years. To where they really wanted to see formal document control. They were looking at everything you were doing. And because of the process we went through, sort of hitting that reset button, doing the foundational things correctly, and unifying it. Well, we didn't really unify, but consolidating what we were doing. That helped. I've encountered as a solo practitioner, folks in PCI audits, and if you think of a duck on the water, it looks graceful, but its little flippers are moving 1,000 miles per hour. And even at good organizations, even at major retailers, when their security teams, when their outside consultants are working on these compliance audits, there's a frenzy of activity. Compliance can be really hard. Getting all that information from many different systems in one place can be really hard, especially reporting. None of that is trivial. I don't know if I answered anything. I just said it's difficult. It is.
Well, I mean, that's right. I mean, we think about these processes in the abstract, and now we got to think about them in the specific as also, in terms of how you handle that. And, Jeff's got a great point. Compliance is a pain because of the processes and procedures. They're run by lawyers, and so many layers just to get them what they want and to show them the number of endpoints and operating systems, and that are they secure?
Secure.
Well, and what constitutes security?
Mm-hmm.
Because
is that really? I mean, yeah. Is that really secure? I mean, when it comes down to it, yeah, you're checking a box, but
sure,
gets everyone to a baseline level.
I mean, if it weren't connected to the internet, maybe it would be secure. But is that really what we're talking about? It meets the letter of the law, which is what the lawyers want. But is that really what we want? No, it's not what we want to really consider it secure. Just consider it compliant. And that's when it gets frustrating, right? Because you're like doing this with the people who, oh, it's good enough. No, it's not good enough for a lot of us, right? Because we want it to be truly updated and working the way it should be working, like be on an updated operating system, not 2008, like Jeff's talking about. Good Lord.
Well, I think in a lot of the cases, we're also looking for, there is no perfectly secure. There is just mitigating risk. And, Fred, who's our CISO, who I adore, he's so down to earth about this kind of stuff. He's like, look, there is no perfectly secure system in a world where there are nation states or, high-level actors outside of nation states, mercenary actors. Your best effort is at that point, did you do everything in your power that makes it still reasonable to, continue to do these kind of things?
And that's absolutely right. That's organizations that have the resources to really focus on security. To be candid, in my experience, we talk about things as if they're second nature, such as even implementing MFA or having security awareness training, getting people not to click on those little drive-by attacks on email targeting, M365 or Azure predominantly. So many organizations aren't doing some of the basic things yet and haven't thought of them. They don't have people who do that. They may have a geek squad when they have an IT problem, but they're not proactive. And these are groups that handle finances, confidential information. And it doesn't mean that they're negligent. They're just busy.
Mm-hmm. As we start to think about, the world in which we live, when we think about security from these perspectives, what's the one thing that you would tell people to do first in combating IT sprawl?
Well, if you have an idea of what your assets are, a real idea of what your assets are, that's the starting point. And it sounds simple, but it takes work. It takes walking the floor, talking to people. You can't just automate that.
Right. Well, and you think about that, it is building that inventory, not just of services, but of products, but of key elements. I mean, building that inventory is the first biggest step to this.
Yeah, I mean, how many smaller organizations know what firmware version their switches are running?
Yep, that's right.
And I don't fault them for that. Even to support those switches is a lot of money for those license subscriptions, for those support subscriptions. And I have to say, we're all sinners. We've all had to make trade-offs, and you do the best you can with what you have.
Absolutely. And as we think about the kind of work that's out there, we think about the kind of work to consolidate. Maybe it's just a periodic review, and working with your purchasers is a great way to handle this.
Yeah.
Having a close partnership with your money organization.
That's a great point.
Is so important because they know what the company's paying for.
As you get through the IT unification process, you're able to allocate more time to have stronger relationships with fewer vendors, if that makes sense.
Well, I also think it gives you a chance to have, clear conversations with the people holding the purse strings in your organization. in terms of where you're spending your money and on what. The more you can consolidate your IT operation, the more time you actually have to do those meetings outside of your department, because you're not managing 200 apps, you're managing 100, or you're managing 50, and you're doing it centrally in an intentional way. And I think, intentionally handling these kind of conversations gives you an opportunity to kind of, really reset your environment and figure out, hey, all right, cool. I'm going to go through this quarter-long process to isolate yourself, to go through that process to, all right, cool. What is my inventory? What are these products being used for? What's their security level right now? Are they tied into some sort of central SSO? Are they username and password? Is there a mandatory MFA that I can turn on, please, for the love of God? Just to, approach the security side of the house. What are you actually capable of in terms of like managing your environment?
More than you think.
Yeah, that's exactly
more
right.
than you think. It's being deliberate, and we have guides to help with that. By the way, you hit on so many good points there, Tom. If you search our website, we have a really good TCO calculator that could come in handy with those finance folks. But we did a budgeting article that is probably the most comprehensive I've ever seen, working with our accounting department. So if you just use the Google, and or maybe someone that's on our panel here could be nice enough to drop,
or go look at last week's IT hour where we did a whole session on it with Pam about TCO. But yeah, we actually have the link, so we can put all of those in there.
Yes, so that budgeting blog was super good. And also, I spent time laying out and create a template for a priority matrix, which is it's qualifiable and quantifiable way of focusing on what projects and ask are coming into IT, and being able to justify what you're doing. And it really helped me. I didn't come at this stuff knowing everything. There's people who taught me things, and a lot of that knowledge we captured and we're sharing with you.
Yeah, I don't think I can hear you.
It posted the text, but not the links. So I will go back and fix that. But yeah, some really good stuff there that Pam gave us last week on the calculator and the blog post and the guide on how to use it. All of those things together. Comparison.
That was super impressive. Not just because Pam is on my team and is an awesome person, but I've not seen anything like this TCO calculator outside of stuff you get if you have a really expensive subscription with a big analyst firm. So this is something that we are giving you to help you.
Absolutely. And it's amazing. We got a lot of really great comments from everyone last week, and they're begging us to get that into Excel as soon as possible. But there's a lot of, it's so extensive. And I think going back to that inventory you were talking about earlier, I mean, if you go through some of this will kind of force you to do some of that inventorying as you're looking at what is my total cost here. Well, let's go through and do an inventory of what we own and what we're thinking about doing, and really help you nail down those costs and future spend too.
Mm-hmm. A budget doesn't necessarily have to be, that whole process doesn't necessarily have to be adversarial. It can be a way of making sure that your priorities happen.
Absolutely. I was going to say the budgeting process is also best effort, right? Like there are going to be things that take you in or out of your budget, and sometimes. And really what it's about is delivering value inside the business. Because a lot of organizations, they mistakenly see IT as a cost center. And that's always concerning when you start to worry about IT as a cost center, because IT is a service enabler. IT is a force multiplier. And IT is all about, building good bonds for the rest of your organization. And a lot of organizations, I found that in some organizations, the IT department or the finance department or the program department are oftentimes like the, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like the execution engine These are the problem solvers. These are the people that are actually, engaged in the running of the business in new and different ways. And so I think about, the IT operations group needs to be that force multiplier just to prove out to the rest of the organization what it is that they, do.
Mm-hmm. And it's easier to do that when your systems and everything are rationalized and easier to manage. And they don't necessarily have to be from one vendor, avoiding that whole monoculture. If that's what you want, terrific, and good luck to you. Sometimes things can really work out well if you buy the Cadillac subscriptions, but that's not for everyone.
Yep. What else do we want to try and talk about today? I feel like we've definitely talked a lot about the IT sprawl that's out there. Where do we want to turn our eyes next?
Such a sprawling conversation.
I'm not going to say it got away from us, but it certainly didn't go where we.
Well, there's a sort of a subnet of this, so to speak. On the security side of things,
Is it a routable subnet, or is it like an internal subnet?
Maybe in my head, but
is it Skynet?
Could be.
No, different nets.
I know.
Is there a NAT router involved?
So anyway, there's the net. So you can't buy your way to good security. And that's another area where sprawl happens. You could buy the best monitoring solutions, EDR, all these automated things. And honestly, you end up ignoring the alerts and turning them off. And unless you've got a huge budget and can do threat hunting on the data lake and really have a really well-resourced team, at least now, there's no such thing as being able to automate and buy your way to good cybersecurity. So really mastering the tools that you have and doing the fundamentals well. And, unification will help with that. Having, good identity and access control, making sure that entitlements are rationalized and more mature model approach to entitlements. Those things can really help because it is the simple drive-by attacks and not necessarily the state actors that are really hitting organizations and increasingly smaller businesses.
Yep. Got to have good hygiene.
Yep.
All right. Do we want to wrap up this topic and move to the fun IT news?
Yeah, there's fun IT news. Let's talk about fun IT news.
Well, we can make it fun. How's that sound? All right, we'll do that. So there were some interesting things happen in Python. So there were 10 malicious Python packages exposed in PyPy, the repository for Python programs and code libraries.
And that one's traditionally for Raspberry Pis, right?
I think so. Checkpoint Research reported these findings on Monday. They didn't know how many people had downloaded the 10 packages. So this is kind of one of those, they're raising an alarm, but you don't really know how many people were affected. PyPy has 613,000 active users, and their code is used in over 390,000 projects. So people could be installing from PyPy through the pip command. So they're estimating that the malicious packages could have seen hundreds of downloads. So really, it's just a matter of please be careful. This Python repository is a frequent target. Researchers have found malicious packages in September 2017, June, July, and November of 2021, and June of this year. So this seems to be a fairly frequent thing. I guess the warning is be careful if you're going to download from something like that and thoroughly check it out before you decide to use.
Supply chain risk is a thing. It's another reason why unification is important.
Yeah, absolutely. The next one, this one just sounded kind of fun. I'm sure you all have heard that, the government is doing a lot of grants right now, expanding broadband all over the US. There was a guy in Michigan who built his own ISP because he didn't want to pay Comcast $50,000 to get Wi-Fi to his house. He was just outside of the area where Comcast had cabling, and this happens to my parents too. Like they're just a couple miles down the road from where all the cable providers go. So if they want to get high-speed internet, they have to pay to lay cable all the way to their house, and it's pricey, right? So Comcast told this guy it would be $50,000 to extend cable to his house. So he decided that he was just going to build it himself. So he wrote in for a grant and got a $2.6 million grant from the government in Washtenaw, Michigan. And he's going to have now he has about 70 customers, and he's going to expand his network to nearly 600 more properties with money from the American Rescue Plan. And it's just really cool that he was just like, yeah, I'm not going to pay you that much, and started his own network and actually started building it and got a few customers, and then went to go get a government grant, got it, and now he's expanding to several more customers and several hundred more customers. And he's doing this in a like a small business way, and not charging them a ton, and doing really simple billing and all these cool things to just help his neighbors, because he didn't like what a huge business was doing.
I wish I knew this person about 3 years ago, because this stings. I was in central Michigan, and to bring fiber into our industrial park from the nearby highway, which wasn't far, they wanted $50,000. Not necessarily Comcast; it was another ISP, and that was the only game in town at that point. But that was sort of used as leverage to get us to sign up for a long-term contract at a higher monthly rate. When that contract was up, another ISP was in the area, and it was a similar story, but they provided a more competitive rate because there was competition. I was going to have to wait until that terminated, and we had two fiber lines coming into the park in order to get real pricing due to the infrastructure and competition being in place. But they soaked us.
Well, and the article said that if they would have asked $10,000, he would have done it. But because they wanted 50, he was like, no, man. So he started his own company, and then it grew from there. And now he's got a grant to do rural broadband. And the funny thing is, I guarantee you, if my dad was about 20 years younger, he'd be doing the same thing.
And Michigan ground freezes quite a bit, so they use that too, saying, well, you better act or you're not going to be able to do this till next year. Just saying, you'll get it. If you put your hand up and you know what I'm pointing to, you really get it.
For sure. And, you think about, all of the different things that you need to do as an ISP. In a lot of cases, it's right-of-way agreements and, all sorts of franchise agreements, all sorts of things that are out there. I'm served in DC by two ISPs. I'm one of the 10% of DC that can get service from either Astound or formerly RCN and now Verizon Fios. Comcast is close by, but they don't serve my block very well. But I do get an option, Kelly. It's amazing. It's just insane. But that's not the case for so many people.
Okay. My parents have no choice whatsoever. They're out in the middle of nowhere, and they have dial-up, and my dad made an agreement with a small company to put a spot on he has a really tall tower that he built to get TV signal, and he made an agreement with them to put a spot on his tower, and they still only give him 1 or 2 megs when they could give him more, because they're using his tower for free to get the signal to all the other neighbors. So it's still, they're still jerking him around. And
people, 4G and satellite, very slow, expensive satellite, are the only game in town if you're in a rural area. 5G is expensive. Not coming. The physics of it aren't good for rural places. So it's, if you live in an urban area, you take for granted the fact that
Mhm.
people don't have the same bandwidth as you elsewhere.
I have Google Fiber, and believe me, okay, not all the neighborhoods around here do, but I'm lucky that they have it right here. And the difference between when I go there from here, in fact, I'm going this weekend, is so stark. It's just like when I try to work when I'm there, it's ridiculous. So I could see why someone, believe me, when I'm there, I'm so frustrated. I could see why someone would want to start their own ISP. Craziness.
There's a homebrew project here in Philly, by the way, even though there are different commercial options. It's worth looking into. I forget what it's called, but it's sort of this peer-to-peer internet type project that is really interesting.
You should post about that in Home Labs. I think that's the label we set up for stuff like that.
Cool.
Okay.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. So speaking of internet and stuff like that, Google briefly nuked the internet on Monday night, apparently. I don't know if you heard about this, but there were large swaths of internet users Monday night who experienced an outage of Google services. They resolved them, but there were supposedly an electrical incident at the Council Bluffs, Iowa data center. But here's the thing. This electrical incident left at least 3 electricians critically injured. And Google denied the link when speaking with Gizmodo about it and said the outages were due to an internal error, whatever that means. So Down Detector started getting reports of Google outages around 9 Eastern on Monday evening. And all of a sudden, they're up to 40,000 reports in less than an hour. So it was all kinds of Google products, Google Maps, Google Search, Gmail, Google Images, mostly US-based with a little bit in Taiwan and Japan. At first, they said it was related to a software update, and then it kind of got a little hazy and, kind of like denials and things. But then people heard about some sort of explosion and electrical fire at the Council Bluffs, which apparently is like their biggest center. And according to the San Francisco Gate, they were working on a substation close to the data center when an explosion occurred. And 1 was airlifted and 2 were rushed by ambulance to treat their wounds. And from what I hear, they're okay. But it was a pretty big deal at the time. I didn't hear about it that night, but I'm reading headlines later. Yikes. So it's crazy that researchers estimate that Google accounts for somewhere between 62 and 92% of the searches conducted worldwide. So when something like this happens, man, it really does make quite an impact. We don't realize it when it's all working and all well and good, but boy, when it breaks down, it really breaks down.
As someone who has bizarrely almost been struck by lightning twice, this makes me shiver.
Yeah. I have known people, I know of people who have been sadly killed by lightning strikes, a friend of the family on a clear day of all things. So it's nothing to be messed with.
Yeah, there were recently a series of storms that rushed through DC last week, and 4 people were struck by lightning in Lafayette Square, and 2 of them perished. Unfortunately, it was an older couple on their tour on a tourist trip from Wisconsin, and they both died.
Now that's where all the embassies and all are.
Lafayette Square is just across from the White House, so it's just north of the White House. It's Mass Ave. That's really Embassy Row.
Oh,
yeah.
All right.
Wow. Yeah, you just don't want to mess with that stuff. But
no.
I'll go back and check, but I think that the people were okay, but it was just some weirdness why Google was denying all of that and everything. But I think they finally talked a little bit more about it, but said that the people were okay. So at least that's good.
That's great.
I jumped over really quickly, and I see that there's a question for you, Tom. Brett is wanting to peek at your notes. Service enabler, force multiplier, and question mark. I don't know when that came in, so I'm not quite sure what that's referring to.
I'm scrolling back up to look here.
We might have to ask Brett to clarify, and then we will be happy to answer that.
Yeah, drop me a link here, or give me a post in the chat machine, and we'll figure this out.
Okay, I will jump to the next headline, and then we'll go from there. Got a couple more. A real quick one about Microsoft. They're urging Windows users to run patch for dog walk 0-day exploit. Even though this came out a while back, they're confirming that this vulnerability is actively being exploited by threat actors, and it is advising all Windows and Windows Server users to deploy its latest monthly patch Tuesday update as soon as possible. This
You could
vulnerability,
just record what you just said and replay it every week.
this one is CVE 2022-34713 or dog walk. It is in the Windows Microsoft Support Diagnostic Tool. So we will put a link and go make sure you check that out. I mean, it was first reported in January 2020, but of course, at the time, Microsoft said it didn't consider the exploit to be a
That's a
security
bad
issue.
one. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you haven't patched that one, please make sure you go do that. And this next headline. Look, I like to include things that are maybe not 100% IT related, but really cool. And I found this on Hacker News, and I just wanted to geek out for a minute with y'all and talk about this because I found a headline that said that there's a British startup, Opteran, that is a spin out of the University of Sheffield, and they are reverse engineering insect brains to make robots.
Nope.
And I'm sorry, I just thought
Nope.
it was.
No.
But wait.
Nope.
They're reverse engineering insect brains to derive new algorithms for collision avoidance and navigation that can be used in robots. And specifically, they're looking at bees and things like that. And what I thought was neat about it was they're calling this approach to AI natural intelligence because they're using biological inspiration for the algorithm. And it was just a little bit interesting how they're approaching this. They're just looking at how like bees can take data and keep all like if you've read anything about bees and how they navigate, and they keep all this information in their brains, and they can go up to 7 miles, and they can give directions to other bees, and they can avoid objects and all these things. And they're really studying all of this in depth to create software that allows machines to adapt more naturally. And I know I understand, Tom. I know that could sound creepy, but
Yeah,
to me,
Rob Lyons is talking about the dead spider they turned into the hydraulic crane, and
Yeah.
absolutely not. You should
about
not
that.
reanimate dead.
no,
things.
that's
not
not
mortal hornets.
but that's not, this is not reanimation. This is just studying how biology works and figuring out, can we make like whatever robotics we're making, like can we make them more collision avoidant or things like that? I mean, that could have
It's super.
I mean, the
that could
zombie
have a
robot
lot of
spiders
cool.
will
No,
be
no, that-
will be here soon, and I for one welcome our new arachnid robot. But just no.
This
Yeah.
is super important though, because as we have more self-driving vehicles, I've had conversations with
Yes,
really
that was where I was going.
secretive startups and companies like IBM, where almost having a local ground traffic control in metro areas might be necessary to have on the ground traffic control with all these self-driving vehicles.
I am just saying the idea of putting 2 tons of steel in the control of a robot programmed by a 20-year-old is a deeply bad idea. I am a hard pass on automated vehicles.
Oh,
Yeah.
human driver is so great.
Yeah, like
I'm just saying that human drivers are terrible. We should
Yes.
not let the same human beings program robots who will be worse.
Did you watch that Amazon original uploaded? Like, I only watched
Yes.
the first season, and it's been long enough. Spoiler alert, if you haven't watched it, too bad, because I'm going to spoil the first season. The guy was driving an autonomous vehicle, and somebody tampered with it, and guess what? He got killed by a vehicle that was supposed to be, on autopilot. So yes, I totally understand because you don't want things like that happening. But what I thought was neat, I was actually picturing like some of the smaller robots. I was actually picturing that dog that weird dog robot that walks really weird. Like if they're playing with that and making it a little more natural or just more avoidant of obstacles and stuff. I just find the science of studying the animals themselves, I find that part fascinating. The application to robotics, yeah, I don't know. Maybe not so
Millions
much.
of years of evolution has a lot of knowledge baked in.
I'm loving the comments around the Umbrella Academy or Umbrella Corp. I guess is that Umbrella Academy? I haven't watched it yet. I need to, but I have not done it yet. With that, we are at time, so I guess I need to just cut that short.
We missed the Mac one. Tom,
That's okay.
sorry.
We'll talk about that in the forums.
Yeah, I know I had one more to do, but I knew it might be iffy to squeeze that one in there or not. So sorry, Tom.
That's okay.
Thank you, everyone. Happy Friday. We loved having you with us. Thanks for the wonderful chat. As always, y'all are awesome in there. Keep the comments coming. Bring it on over to the forum. There's a link below all of us that links directly to Jump Cloud Community. And we're also in the Jump Cloud Slack Lounge and everywhere else. So come join us after the IT hour. We will see you later and see you next week. I will be here. Tom and Alexa are abandoning me, but I will be here, and we will have some wonderful guests, and we will keep on keeping on. So
I will send you all a postcard from Monterey. So.
Same here from Liverpool, England.
Oh yeah, rub it in, both of you. Thanks a lot. Yeah. You are uninvited for the next couple of IT hours.
Great to join. Thank you all.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Have a good
everybody.
weekend.